Good afternoon and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us on this absolutely beautiful day to celebrate the formal dedication of our new first kindergarten interactive classroom. My name is Melissa Lampe, and I am the president of the Watertown Historical Society. I'd like to take a few minutes to talk about this very special new building behind me, and then I will turn the microphone over to my colleague Jim Brockler and to Mayor Robert Stocks. So in the spring of 2023, we were approached by our friend Tom Schultz, who mentioned that Barton Benson was interested in working on a project with the Watertown Historical Society. So Barton's name was one I was already familiar with. Barton and his wife, Sarah, have become major catalysts in Watertown for bringing community projects to fruition. They have provided funding for educational opportunities in Watertown schools. They helped fund the construction of the new Lebanon History Center. They provided the major gift to ensure the construction and completion of the Benson Family Town Square, named in their honor. And they are a top donor to the new YMCA currently under construction. Barton and Sarah live in Arizona, and they have provided these incredible gifts to Watertown in memory of Barton's father, Charles Benson, and his grandfather, Mike A.E. Benson, who was a former mayor of Watertown. Both Barton's father and grandfather were deeply connected to the city. So back to that initial conversation with Tom Schultz. When Tom said the word project, my mind immediately started sorting through the endless list of projects we always have here at the Octagon House Museum, and they usually involve repairing rotted wood or painting porches. But that was not what Barton had in mind for us. He wanted us to think big and to think outside the box. So after quite a bit of brainstorming and daydreaming, the idea was born to create an interactive classroom to further share the incredible story of the founding of the first kindergarten right here in Watertown, which occurred in 1856. The original first kindergarten building, right here, was moved to the Octagon House grounds 100 years after its founding in 1956. Through our new interactive classroom, we can tell the story of Friedrich Froebel, who invented the concept of kindergarten, and Margaretha Meyer-Schurz, who's the woman credited with starting the kindergarten here in Watertown, in a new and modern way. So a proposal was written, and Barton was intrigued by the project. A few more conversations were had, and on Wednesday, June 28, 2023, we learned that Barton and Sarah would fully fund this project and turn our dream into a reality. So moving pieces took a bit of time to fall into place, but it was all worth the wait. This project would not be possible without our continued partnership here with RJ Construction of Watertown. It also would not be possible without the leadership of our Society Vice President Jim Brockler, who allowed us to appoint him chairperson of this project. He probably regretted that many, many times. So this exterior vision is mine, but everything you see inside is the result of Jim's careful planning and incredible attention to detail. To that end, I am proud to thank the following businesses and individuals that helped bring this project to life. So of course, number one is the Benson Family Foundation. Then Tom Schultz, representing the Watertown Area Community Foundation, the Watertown Historical Society Board of Directors, and our manager, Jody Newman, Ryan Jones of RJ Construction and his incredible, tireless crew, who are all very talented, Diane Fontaine and Diane Reinhardt, United Electric, First Class Concrete, Carew Heating and Air Conditioning, Fusion Video, Wiseway Flooring, Webco Printing, Joe Launenzak of Wisconsin Main Street, who helped us actually turn my vision for this building into a colorful design that we could then use to create blueprints, HEP Excavating, Tim Theater Landscaping, who for years has been responsible for our beautiful grounds, and he really worked wonders in turning what was a lot of piles of mud into this beautiful landscape that you see today. And of course, here's what's unique. The Watertown Public Library Knitting Group made the colorful yarn balls for us that you'll see inside the first kindergarten, and the yarn balls are number one of Froebel's 10 gifts, which are like the building blocks to his educational system. We also thank those who provided encouragement along the way. It's not easy to manage a construction project as a volunteer organization when we all have families and full-time jobs elsewhere. And now it is my pleasure to welcome Jim Brockler.
Thank you, Melissa. I would be remiss if I didn't add a few names to that list who I purposely did not give to her. And first on that list would be Jonathan and Melissa, and they have been tireless in helping with this. And then our two actors who you will see who shall remain nameless because I'd like a little bit of mystery as you see our talking screens today. As an educator and part of this historical society, it's been my dream to make something where they could learn in a different manner. In one of my grad classes, we found out that people learn from reading and writing and listening, but a lot of them learn from doing. And at most museums, that's not something you found, and we didn't find it here. And I stumbled onto a courthouse in Bexar County, Texas, which is San Antonio, where they had just spent $3 million to build a museum in the lower level of their complex. Wandered through it, wonderful pictures, interaction, crawl spaces for children and all this. And I thought I have to find the person responsible for this. And an hour and a half later, I'd picked her brain to pieces, came back with the ideas for one of the big things about this is today you're going to get to hear Marguerite and Frabel talk to you. And they are just part of one of the other inventions. When we talked about Frabel's ideas and his principles, they are all tiny little, sharp little gifts. They are not very friendly to just general communities. They're small, they're wooden, they have ends, they're dangerous. Okay, so I needed to find something that would upgrade that. And then I wandered into a museum in my favorite city in America, besides Watertown, and that would be Washington, D.C., and the National Building Museum, where they have these giant blue blocks. And they come in all different sizes that I walked in, the kids were playing, and they were building, and they were creating, and all of this, and I thought, that's what I want for this museum, so that they can come in and not have a parent, no, don't touch that. They would just enjoy the activity. So, as you get the opportunity to see what we have this afternoon, I want you to read some, I want you to look, but I want you to play, because that's all part of Frabel's gift. So we are so thankful that you're here this afternoon. It is my privilege to introduce our next speaker, longtime friend, as well as a fellow educator, and your mayor, Robert Stocks.
Yeah. What a gorgeous day. Thank you for coming today. It's nice to be here with Evan without rain in my head. I did a video on Wednesday and had umbrellas. This place brings back a lot of memories. I was first here in 1980 when I was in kindergarten myself, attending kindergarten at Lincoln School. And I remember making paper chains and put them in there. There was some in there that were there for a year, and they're all droopy, and we exchanged them, and I still have memories actually being here that I was 5 years old or 6 years old back then. When I got a job at graduating college and getting a job at Schurz School, I taught there for 5 years doing third grade. And Schurz was walking distance, so it was a nice, inexpensive field trip to do. And part of third grade was always having a pack in, talking about Newly and the Goose and the waiter inside, and learning the history of Watertown and the Schurz family, which back then for the kids, I realized that Mrs. Schurz's name was the same as her school. But we always walk here down Clark Street. I lived on Clark Street, and there were some times my wife, who's here right now, would have some cookies and little cups of juice. So we'd leave Schurz and come up here, and the kids would have cookies and eat on the way. They were disappointed on the way back. They didn't get the same thing. Mr. Gary Held, I worked with back then, he made announcements like, hey guys, this is where Mr. Stocks lives. He likes to be woken up at 6 o'clock in the morning on Saturdays. Unfortunately, it actually happened once. A boy named Jared knocked on the door and wanted to show his sister what a teacher looked like. It's the only time it happened. But a lot of memories coming here. I think Mrs. Lampe had mentioned first kindergarten actually was in Germany, but Mrs. Schurz brought that concept here, moved here from Philadelphia in 1855, and 1856 started first kindergarten. And I believe only had 5 students that year. And it grew and grew, and she worked here for about a dozen years or so and moved back to Philadelphia after some time. But kindergarten started here, and what a base for... I student taught first grade. The younger the age group, the harder it is to teach. The patience it takes, I knew right away first grade wasn't for me. The kindergarten's extra special, and it creates a base for education through our adulthood. And we just had, because of her and what started here in 1856, 169 years later, how many hundreds of millions of Americans have had kindergarten and had their start because of this building. In kindergarten, I even think my own self when I was in kindergarten, but learning numbers, even how to just write them in basic words, learning the alphabet, finger painting, snacks, and nap time. It was the only time I could take naps, I think, in kindergarten without getting yelled at. Fine motor skills, learning how to cut, to glue, to color, to draw, even to pour things. Remember, snack time was a big deal. You had little cups and just honing those skills on for future education. Difficulty of teaching. I did this for 25 years, but having compassion, patience, especially the younger they are, being creative, being enthusiastic all the time, even it's hard to be rapport with those students and foster a positive and productive learning environment. I think Jim had just mentioned too, like what a great way for kids to interact with the past in here. I think I couldn't touch much when I was here back in 1980, and now kids are going to be encouraged to touch and learn. You know, as a teacher, I always wanted to teach kids to be respectful and to be responsible, honest and fair, and be caring, and learn to be humble and caring for others and be a productive citizen in our community. I think just what a great thing. I remember seeing Ryan Jones working on here like a year ago, and it was all dirt and building all this and where it was going to go. It just turned beautiful after a couple of years, and what a great way the community come together and build such a fine historical landmark for Watertown. But thank you for everybody for coming here today. I'm excited to see the ribbon cutting now. Okay, thank you very much.
So if my Historical Society board members would please come up, we will cut the ribbon. And then everyone, we have lots of cookies and lemonade in the visitor center, so please stop in there before you leave today. Okay. 3, 2, 1.